Welcome to Power Up Your Practice, the go-to podcast for law firm owners and managing attorneys working on the business, not in it. I'm Ruby Powers, your guide into the heart of law practice management, bringing you insights from leading legal minds, trailblazing attorneys, and expert guests who provide you with an actionable perspective on running your firm more effectively and efficiently. Prepare to open your mind, be inspired, and power up your practice to the next level. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, your companion through the evolving landscape of law practice management. On each episode, we're going to hear from our guests about their superpowers, what they've learned along the way, and their perspectives on reaching success. So today, I'm really excited to have Karl Seelbach, and he is a law firm founder. He's also a legal tech founder at Skribe.ai, and he has over 17 years of experience in the courtroom representing clients in personal injury, business, and employment litigation. He's a skilled advocate and tenacious fighter. And prior to launching his own firm in 2015, he worked as a litigation partner at one of Texas' largest firms, Winstead PC, where he was mentored by some of the state's top litigators. And so he went to South Texas College of Law, which is where I teach. And he went to undergrad at Stephen F. Austin State University. And he likes to spend time with his wife and daughters in Dripping Springs, and amongst other fun things. So, Karl, I'm really glad that you could join us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Ruby, for having me. Love the connection, by the way, with South Texas as well.
Yeah, I know. I think we met or came about knowing each other because you, Skribe AI was, you were one of the companies showcased in the, what's it called at that first night, right? The
Startup Alley at ABA.
Startup Alley. Yeah. And I think then I think I reached out to you. I'm not sure if we connected there at ABA Tech Show this year, but having the Texas connection, I just wanted to reach out, and then we found out we had a lot of these other things in common. And so, and then, well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we were talking about having other pursuits besides our law firms because we're a glutton for punishment and excitement. So anyway, so why don't we talk about, so you started your own firm in 2015, and I don't think I said your law firm name. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey into starting your own firm and some of the things you've learned from that?
Yeah, so it was a relatively straight path from law school. Right out of law school, from the on-campus recruiting at South Texas, I ended up at Winstead in their Houston office. And I was doing all sorts of litigation. I was doing finance and banking litigation, real estate litigation. And I eventually, over the years, stumbled into personal injury work. And I really enjoyed it because it got me really in the room, taking depositions, going to site inspections, getting out of the office. And I really just enjoyed the people dynamic of it. It was a little bit less paper than some of the other litigation dockets that I was working on, and a little more kind of digging for facts in the trenches, so to speak. So I did that at Winstead for about 9 years. I moved from their Houston office to their Austin office in 2008. And then in 2014, I think, or 15, the years blur together, made partner there. But right around that time, a good friend of mine, Trek Doyle, and I decided that if we were going to grow the practice, the client base we had from the 1 or 2 clients doing personal injury defense to more clients, we needed to open our own firm so that we could control the overhead, reduce the rates, and have that flexibility to hopefully grow. So we did that. It didn't go exactly as planned. We actually lost a client in the process of moving, but that was one of many lessons I've learned in my career. But it did ultimately pan out. And so since 2015, Trek and I have grown the firm to a team of 15 attorneys, 11 staff members, most of which are paralegals. And we've got about 30 institutional clients that send us repeat litigation. Probably 90% of it is personal injury defense. And the other 10% is a mixture of kind of general litigation. Some of it's commercial litigation, some of it's administrative, some of it's real estate. So it's been fun. I certainly learned a lot of things that they don't teach you in law school about starting a business.
Well, so you guys have moved really fast in 9 years. I mean, are you happy that you had a partner? I mean, do you think that was a big part of being able to grow so quickly?
I think it helps a ton to have a partner. If you don't have a partner, at least get a mentor. Find someone that you can lean on who's either done it before or will do it with you. That's not to say you can't do it alone. There are tons of people who started their own law firms, solo with just themselves and grew them from there. But for me, I think it really helps in forming a business to have a co-founder that you can bounce ideas off of. You can cover for each other, you can help each other. So both for the law firm that I started, as well as the software company that we can talk about later, I have co-founders in both companies, and I attribute that to why those companies have been successful. People ask me all the time, what, like you mentioned, you're a glutton for punishment. Why do you have, more than one company? And I said, well, it's really not a punishment. It's a pleasure. I really enjoy it. And we just have great teams at both companies, and it's the people at the companies that make all the difference.
You when we were preparing to talk, or right before we started, you said like you were willing to share some of the things you learned the hard way. And whenever someone says they don't teach this in law school, I just my reflex is, well, I'm actually teaching this in law school, but I'm one of few professors in a few law schools that are actually teaching this, but I don't think this was available when a lot of us were in law school that have firms, and it's sort of, but anyway, sharing the pitfalls and our mistakes doesn't, I don't feel like comes naturally as attorneys, because we're sort of proud and we don't admit mistakes. So I mean, are you willing to admit any things you learned?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I was talking to someone earlier today, and we kind of said failure is a necessary step towards success. Like if you had never
Yeah.
failed, then I would probably question whether you're truly succeeding, because most people that have a lot of success have failed somewhere along the way and learned from it. And so, I mean, the most obvious example that comes to mind is the one I briefly mentioned, which is, we were leaving to start our own. It went about as poorly as you could hope. But, they don't really teach you in law school, how to leave one firm and join another, or leave one firm and start your own company. So, doing that and doing it in a way that's professional, ethical, responsible is a tricky thing. And in hindsight, I wish we would have asked someone else who had done it before for some guidance through that process, because we were certainly doing it with the best of intentions, which was to reduce our overhead, reduce the expense our clients were paying. But ultimately, whether through miscommunication or maybe something else that I am still blind to, the client didn't see it the same way to stay with the firm. So we left with a lot less business than we expected to have, which, was very nerve-wracking, but also, I suppose, in hindsight, forced us to roll up and really, just go to work, hitting the streets and our networks and trying to drum up business. So it certainly worked out for the best. At the time, I lost a lot of sleep over it, and also hated to leave a firm that I respected, and still do. So many of the partners and the people that I worked with on, not the most glamorous terms, when there's a client at stake, it sometimes, ugly may be overstating it, but it certainly gets a little heated when companies are looking at a client leaving potentially with someone who's going to take some profit with them. So that was one of the lessons, I would say. There's certainly been others along the way. I think, one of the ones that I recently learned is sometimes you have to be willing to stand up for your team and stand up for what you believe in, and the way that you do business. We just had a client who ways with our firm, and I can say with confidence that we were in the right, and the client was just extremely difficult, extremely high maintenance, and was really raking one of my team members over the coals for something that they they really didn't make a mistake. They didn't do anything wrong. This person was just really overly picky, OCD about, the wording, the verbiage used in some, brief or something,
Mm-hmm.
to an extent where it was form over substance, and I can say that as someone I've been doing this long enough that, I kind of know when someone really makes a mistake where they need to own it and we need to fix it. And, there's a substantive issue versus something that's purely stylistic or form. And so I think that can be very hard to manage, the client relationship, when a lot of times, you hear, well, the customer's always right, or, people, that kind of gets baked into your psyche. But I would say, don't fall into that trap, because as you start a business, as you grow a business, whether it's your own business or whether you are working at a larger company and you have your own clients, you also have to be willing to stand up for your team, and they will respect you more for it. And you have to be willing to draw a line between, when you're going to give the client the benefit of the doubt versus when you're going to stand up for what you know is right and disagree with the client and let the chips fall where they may. So that's also been a recent lesson that I learned, and that client left, and that's okay. Like, we have a ton of work, a ton of clients, and I just don't think we were a good culture fit for that particular in-house counsel.
So it's funny you're saying that. And for anybody who's like listening, I'm like shaking my head profusely, because I was working on the client management. I'm debating on what to call the title of the chapter, like client-centered firm or whatever chapter last night. And I'd finished the chapter, and it would bug me because I was like, you know what? Boundaries. I need to talk about boundaries, and I need to talk about how we need to stand up for ourselves from how we're going to be treated and how we're going to let our staff be treated. And echoing what you're saying, you can simultaneously be a client-centered firm and still say no, put your foot down, and fire a client for like a mismatch in culture and so on. And you're completely right. Like, it's painful initially to part ways or fire a client like that. But what you're really doing is you're freeing yourself up for more a better energy, better client relationship. And, I don't know, they always throw around that whole 20-80 rule. Like, I don't know, 20% of the clients spend 80% of your energy. I don't know. But I think ultimately you did the right thing. And I think that's a really key point, that we have to stand up for our staff and let the clients know what's permitted and what isn't. And, if it's just not a good fit, then hey, it's not a good fit. But by avoiding that tough conversation, I was actually rereading like Fierce Conversations, and just avoiding those tough conversations, we make a bigger mess. And I think that's also that permeates from what you let your staff to do, what you let your clients do, and just vendors and everyone else you work with. So that permeates throughout life. But anyway.
Yeah. It's ultimately a people business, and communication.
Yeah, exactly.
Communication is in my experience, communicating clearly or poorly is the number one way to win or lose a client. And I just had a client prospect meeting yesterday with my law partner, and it's a Fortune 500 company that's looking to add new litigation counsel in Texas. And you also have to make sure that you understand the company's mission and philosophy, and that it hopefully matches your own. And so what I mean by that is, one of the very interesting comments that came up yesterday, and there was probably about, 6 or 7 people that were interviewing us for to be added to handle probably anywhere from 15 to 20 cases in the state of Texas for this company. And one of the things that they said, and it really resonated, and I think it speaks to what you were just saying, Ruby, is they said they had interviewed a firm that was like, oh, we're win at all costs. We're extremely aggressive. We're going to go to trial. They were just, fighters, really, really aggressive fighters. And that was not what this company wanted, right? The docket that they were interviewing law firms for was their work injury docket. So these are their employees. These are their team members. They're not looking to pound them into the pavement. They're looking for a firm that can help find the truth of what happened and try to reach a fair and equitable result, because they do care about their employees. but they're also going to defend themselves against negligence claims if those claims don't have any merit. And so, a big part of what we do, and it really threads through both of my companies, the law firm and Skribe, is finding out the truth is the most important. And in my experience, at least in the world of personal injury, depositions are usually the best way to do that. And so, I tell our team, our mission is to really discover the truth of what happened. How did the person get injured? Whose fault was it? How bad are they hurt? And what would be a fair and equitable outcome? And that's kind of how we handle almost every case at our firm, which is primarily personal injury defense.
So you said that while you were working through your firm, that the idea for Skribe came along as a form of an efficiency or a way to leverage technology and AI. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about how Skribe came about?
So I was very fortunate that when I started practicing law at Winstead, I had two or three really, Jeff Joyce, John McFarland, Yasmin Atasi, several partners at that Houston office of Winstead really gave me a lot of responsibility as a first year that sometimes big firms don't give their associates. And one of those things was the opportunity to start taking depositions almost immediately. So within the first 60 to 90 days, I had my first deposition, and there was really no looking back after that. And so as I took and defended deposition after deposition after deposition, I started to get frustrated with the process in several ways. One, I really didn't like how long it took for me to get a copy of my transcript and my video. It tends to take weeks or sometimes a month or more to get a copy of the record, unless I'm willing to pay or my client's willing to pay double or triple. So how slow it was really an annoyance, and it actually slowed me down in moving the case forward and kind of summarizing the deposition for my client and getting ready for the next thing on my task list. So one hurdle. The other was I video all my depositions. I always have. And it's because video is the most persuasive form of evidence that you can have in a case, video testimony. You get to see the witness, hear the witness, the look on their face, the tone of their voice. There's just no substitute for it. But what I realized was I was still getting video and the text kind of in a format that was clunky. It was very hard for me to just open them up and create video clips and share those clips the way that I believe modern software should work. And so that was problem number two, was we're getting all this video, but it's really just sitting in the file cabinet or on the firm's server. And we're not really leveraging it. What if we could put it in a brief? What if we could put it in a demand letter or a mediation statement or a client report? And so that was the second big piece of this. And then the third was cost. The cost to take a deposition has skyrocketed. And I've always thought, even 15 plus years ago, it was too expensive. Post-COVID, the cost is almost doubled. So, in a world of software where you and I can host this, podcast through Google Chrome on a, video platform that will enable you and your team to chop it up and share it, you shouldn't have to spend, $700-800 per hour to do, and you don't on podcasting. So why should we for deposition? So those are really the three reasons, the speed, the cost, and the ability to work with video in a better way. And ultimately, I decided to kind of stop being frustrated and start looking for a solution, and decided to start Skribe to solve those three things.
So what does Skribe do? Like what do firms, I mean, I'm sure it does what you just said, but like how does a firm, what do they do when they hire Skribe or use Skribe?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Skribe has two different products that we offer. One is Skribe Live, which is a replacement for old-fashioned court reporting. So you would actually notice your deposition non-stenographically through Skribe. Skribe at that point hires a certified notary to serve as the liaison for the event, swear in the witness, provide technical support, make sure that everything goes off without a hitch. Skribe records the event. It's hosted in Zoom. We have a partnership with Zoom. Just recorded through Zoom. There's redundancy, so you don't have to worry about the recording failing. And after the event, same day as your deposition or EUO or whatever, official testimony you need to take, you get a rough transcript video where you can read it, search it, clip it, do pretty much anything you need to do with it, and actually share the video clips in a report or an email or a brief just by copying and pasting that corresponds to the testimony that you want to share. So that's the first part of it. And then within 3 to 5 days, you get a professionally proofread and legally formatted transcript that looks just like the transcripts most attorneys are used to seeing. And they're as accurate, or in our experience, actually more accurate than a old-fashioned stenographer.
Does someone like watch the AI transcription and double checks that it was done right or something? Like,
that's exactly right. There's actually three layers of checking for accuracy. So yeah, a professional transcriptionist goes through and corrects any mistakes in the software generated transcript in connection with the verification process and going through and cleaning up the transcript and formatting the transcript. So it's a very, very thorough process, and it's all 50% or less than the cost of an old-fashioned court reporting agency. And the speed is, a lot of people come to us for the cost savings, but they stay for the speed, because the ability to get the deposition the same day it's over and start reviewing it and then get the final transcript in 3 to 5 days. And, you can just move your cases faster, get to your next task faster. And we've seen attorneys use the video clipping feature in all sorts of really cool ways. I mean, there's been motions for summary judgment filed with video clips embedded in them. We've seen demand letters go out, mediation position statements. My law firm team, uses it a lot for reporting, so that instead of us just telling a client that this witness is a good witness or a bad witness, or there was some really important testimony on this issue or that issue, we actually create clips and we show the client so that they can actually begin to assess the witness's credibility based on how they present it.
So it sounds like, why did this exist before? Because we've had, I've been using Otter AI for a couple of years, and it sounds like it's doing that, and we've been everybody's been using Zoom since the pandemic. I used it before the pandemic. But anyway, was it not accepted or something, or what were some of the barriers, or nobody put 2 and 2 together? It sounds like it's a huge disruptor in your field.
No, it is definitely a big disruptor, and we have some coming soon features that I think will be even more disruptive. But the reason I think it hasn't been done before is, there was really no one to break up the status quo. All of the large court reporting firms, they're happy to collect $700, $800, $900 an hour to record testimony and charge you for it, even though a lot of it's in Zoom and can be done in a more efficient way. Really, for me, the straw that broke the camel's back was I was taking a orthopedic expert's deposition a few years ago. I guess it's almost been 3 years now, 2.5 years ago. And I signed on to the deposition. It was an evening deposition. A lot of times doctors like to get deposed after hours. And it was by Zoom, and we signed on, and a very sweet old lady court reporter greeted us. And I said, "Okay, we're ready to go. Could you press record?" And she said, "No, I can't do that. We have to have a videographer here." And I said, "Well, I video all my depositions. What do you mean? I don't do a deposition without checking the box for video." And she said, "Oh, there must have been a mistake or confusion. We can reschedule, or we can wait a few hours while we find a videographer." And I just thought, this is bizarre. All she has to record, and we could all have a copy of the video. And so that pushed me over the edge. And Tom Irby, who used to own a court reporting firm years ago, he's my co-founder at Skribe. He and I decided, let's do this. It's time to modernize the way the legal industry captures this testimony. And so that was kind of the breaking point for me, when I was like, okay, it's time to try to disrupt this industry and bring something new to the market.
Wow. So much, it's like you're like the Uber to the taxi to the Netflix to the Blockbuster, but so this is basically what we're talking about in this whole revolution of how AI and leveraging technology can disrupt the practice of law, and in a good way. You're basically saying you're getting at half the price, you're getting the ability to slice and dice clips in terms of it really in real time, good quality, and you have it in like so fast. What are so what do you think that how are you thinking like other ways in which people are leveraging a firm owner should leverage technology to be able to see these types of efficiencies?
I mean, there's so many ways. I'll touch on a few. And so, again, obviously, we'd welcome your listeners to test out Skribe for depositions or any legal testimony capture. We also have a feature called Skribe Library where they can upload any audio or video file that they need transcribing or transcription from. And we transcribe it within minutes. They can then share it, clip it, search it. And again, we'll be adding some really amazing AI features, hopefully later this year. I know your listeners will be excited to try out. But other things that I have personally tried, I gave a presentation on this to the Austin Bar Association I guess it was about 2 months ago. And I tested personally about 10 different generative AI solutions for all sorts of different use cases. And so if and I still haven't completely finished my vetting process and decided what am I going to deploy at my law firm and what am I not going to deploy at my law firm. So, I will say that this is my current assessment.
Okay.
Research. I recommend Casetext Co-Counsel. I looked at the other ones. I had a demo of Harvey. I looked at Lexis AI. I looked at Westlaw Precision's AI tool. And my assessment was that Casetext Co-Counsel was the most intuitive. They finally changed their pricing structure on it to make it monthly. I think it's $300 or $400 a month per user, but you can talk to it just like you kind of would use Google Gemini or ChatGPT, do legal research, and you actually get the supporting cases. So you don't have to worry about hallucinations. You actually get the reference to the source material. So I think that in any AI that you're considering, I would make sure A, that it's secure, B, that they're not training on your data that you're submitting, and C, that it cites to the source material. And so I think that's very important for avoiding your staff or even you potentially relying on something that is hallucinating.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I've done a lot of these talks recently as well, and I just found like people's place in the evolution of adapting AI is just varies so greatly. I think probably a lot of the people listening to my podcast are probably using a lot more or like intrigued, but just like a lot of attorneys or even law students I talk to aren't even using like Chat GPT. And then I think depending on where they are in the conversation, the evolution, like people are, like you're like scoping out the different ones and then trying to figure out which ones to use. And so many of them are changing so rapidly right now. It's a little mind boggling and a little overwhelming. But I mean, just thinking about how like Skribe can change personal injuries world. A lot of these other programs are also changing the practice, and everything from the reducing the reliance on the billable hour to document assembly and drafting. And I mean, I'm just really excited. We're about to move over to new case management software, and we were having a meeting today about like how many cool things it's going to be able to do. And then we're going to have to reevaluate all of our operations because so many of the things that we're going to be able to do, we can sort of rewrite our operations manual.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a balance, but I do think that this is a tip of the iceberg moment, and that it's probably the stories yet to be told on just how significant of an impact generative AI and software is going to have on the legal industry. I'm talking to my law partner about, it'll be interesting to see if law firms adopt it faster than corporations and companies that are looking to systemize, like, for example, discovery responses. Imagine, you're in-house at, an insurance company or a Fortune 500 company, and you have lawsuits nationwide where you're relying on 10, 20, 50 different law firms to draft responses to discovery and similar types of cases. With AI, you could probably automate and systemize a lot of that and tell your outside counsel, and again, maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot, but I don't love doing written discovery responses anyway. But I mean, I think you could say, hey, we'll do the first draft. Like, let us use our software to do the first draft. You don't even need to start typing anything. We'll get you a draft, outside counsel, using our software solution, and then you can review it and finalize it and get it out the door. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. The other thing, I'm noticing as a law firm owner is you really can't just wait. And I think wait and see is a dangerous approach for two reasons. Yeah. For two reasons. One, you are, I don't think AI is going to replace attorneys, but I think attorneys who use AI are going to beat attorneys who do not. And do, I say beat because I'm a litigator, but if you transactional work, do a better job, quicker, faster, more efficient, maybe even more effective than their counterparts who do not use software. And I also think that, and I just saw this rolled out in Adobe, and I haven't even had time to address it yet at my firm. It's on my radar. I've got to carve out the time to train my team on it. We have, like many firms, we have a lot of cloud-based subscriptions, and Adobe has rolled out, and maybe there's a way to deactivate it, I don't know, but Adobe has rolled out their AI assistant. It's in the top right-hand corner, and
I saw that.
You can chat with, search your PDFs, summarize them, whatever you want to do, and it's really cool. I use it, but I need to train my team on it, and so that's on my task list to do. And the other thing, I mentioned there's a couple of reasons to do it. One, to stay competitive and ahead of your peers. Two, because some of the softwares that your firm uses may be actually adding AI assistants or AI chat features. And so you need to train your team on how to use them. And then three, I think what you don't want to do is just bury your head in the sand and have team members who, without training, without vet, dropping things into ChatGPT in a way that doesn't protect privacy or confidentiality. They don't, maybe realize that they need to vet and source, the answers because it can hallucinate. So I think there's a lot of risk if you don't put a game plan in place. And it's one of the things that I'm hoping later this year I can maybe either blog about or, share some insight as a small firm owner myself of how to deploy AI in a responsible way at a litigation firm.
Yeah, that sounds great. I was doing like a tech podcast episode recently, and we were like, oh, we're just like the tip of the iceberg. We need to do another episode where we're talking about like practical usage and just talk about that. So we're planning to do that, but I completely agree. And so when you were talking about those who use AI and they're going to beat, or what did you say, win again? I forgot what word you used, but like that's I agree. I completely agree. And I keep referring back to that Rogers innovation adoption curve. And I think like there's the innovators and the early adopters, and those are the people who've been monitoring ChatGPT and all the everything since the last year and a half or more, even before that, because it exists before. I remember them unveiling some really cool programs back at 2019 ABA Tech Show, and we were all just like jaw dropped. We're like, wow, So anyway, like but you're right. Like we have to keep, as law firm owners and managing attorneys and partners, we have to keep saying, hey team, look at this, do this up. We have to keep like upskilling them and make it like a constant project, it's almost like, there's probably someone in your firm that's in charge of keeping up with the tech and the vendors or whatever, but like, it's almost like another part of that job is like, how do you upskill your practice with AI and all those tools?
And I think maybe one, and this is not intended to be a scare tactic with your listeners at all, but I did find it interesting as I was preparing for a presentation, the one I referenced earlier with the Austin Bar Association, that I looked at the ethics rules, both the American Bar Association as well as the Texas ethics rules that apply to competence around technology and software. And I found a very interesting, I won't say that I agree with it, but it's out there, and it's ABA, American Bar Association Resolution 112. And it actually talks about not only should attorneys be knowledgeable about technology and software, including generative they need to inform their clients of if they are using it. And this was particularly, I thought, kind of mind, at least at this phase for me, if a lawyer decides not to use AI, and doing so would have benefited the client. Like, for example, the fees would be significantly lower. I think they use the word materially reduce the cost of providing legal services. That could result in the lawyer charging a quote unquote unreasonable fee. And so, at least for the model rules or the resolution 112, whoever wrote that, whatever committee drafted that, really put a pretty heavy burden, in my opinion, on the attorneys to not only make sure they're aware of the technologies that are available, but they're deciding in the best interest of their clients, including even if it would save them a lot of money and time, whether to use or not to use certain software. And I don't think any attorneys are at risk today, probably, of being, reprimanded or called out, for that. But I could see in the future where they would be. If all of a sudden you could have AI summarize, thousands of pages in 2 minutes, and it would take days to have an associate do it. It's probably not responsible billing on the part of the law firm or the attorney to, manually go through all that stuff.
I think a good general rule of thumb is just to put in your attorney client agreement that you're using AI and the up-to-date technology, and just so that they're aware. I think, was it Florida or some state, I think, is supposed to tell them about that. And I think I think that's just a good practice. But I was listening to some tech leaders, I guess, in this space, and they were saying, I guess we are too, but they were saying that that it just seems sort of silly that we have to say that we're using it. It's like saying, oh, I'm using the internet, but eventually it'll like not be a required. But and I think to your point about like, well, you should do your best not to intentionally waste resources and charge more to the client for being inefficient. I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be the firms that are leveraging AI technology to the fullest. They're going to be able to do what other firms are doing, but for a fraction of the cost. And then, then it's a question of, are they going to lower their fees? But then, sort of capture the market. We don't necessarily want there to be a race to the bottom, but we do want to be able to meet the needs of more clients, because there's so many people who don't hire attorneys, and this whole access to justice issue of not, the latent market out there. So I think, though, what will happen is that those who leverage the AI are going to reap the benefits, because they're I was actually writing about this in my tech chapter recently. It's not only that you're going to be more efficient, it's that your staff is going to be happier because things are more efficient, but also your clients are going to be happier because, not only the cost savings, but like it's more efficient. Like there can be more automations that help communicate better, staying on top of things. Like it's like a win-win-win once you embrace it and have it under control.
Yeah, you said one thing that really resonates, particularly both with the law firm as well as Skribe, and that's the concept that cost should not stand in the way of finding the truth or pursuing justice. And I think that it is standing in the way, both from the attorney's fee side of the equation and some of the litigation support expenses in a case. We've had attorneys tell us that in some of their child custody disputes, they afford to take a deposition because of how expensive it's become to take a deposition. And so through software solutions like Skribe, our hope is that we can bring the costs down substantially for capturing legal testimony, so that attorneys no longer have to make the decision in their cases whether to take a deposition or not based on cost. I think our goal, at least mine as the founder, is I want to reduce the cost of Skribe, not increase the cost. So my hope is, as we leverage software, as we grow, as we're able to apply kind of economies of scale to what we're doing, get the cost down so low that any attorney or pro se litigant can schedule a deposition and capture legal testimony without stressing about the cost, and make it just as simple as scheduling a Zoom or a Google Meet or whatever, and can get a record that they can rely on with the court.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think I've been having a few people on podcast about how to leverage technology to create more representation and reduce that friction of cost and labor and time. And so kudos to you and your partner for creating this program. And I think we're going to continue to see more in this space going forward. And those listening, I think we all need we're not the people who put our head in the sand. We're like looking up, and we're we're eagerly trying to see what's up in other industries and even in our own to find how we can be more efficient. So we're closing up. We're getting towards the end. It's been great talking with you. But what I always ask is, what is your favorite board game and why? Or it could be a game, but I generally like to see games like sort of a microcosm for life and running a business. So I feel like it's a fun way to to get a lighthearted read on a person's perspective on life.
Well, you're definitely going to get a lighthearted read, because I will tell your audience you did not prep me for this question, but that's okay. So I'm going to answer very honestly, and you're probably going to laugh at the answer, but I'm going to explain it. So Monopoly Junior.
Okay. Oh, Junior. Okay.
Yeah, but that's because I play it with my little kids, and regular Monopoly takes way too long.
Yes,
it's far too long, and it's a little bit complicated for the kids. And I found that you can have just as much fun and still teach them how to own all the real estate and become the landlord in the Monopoly Junior game. So that's probably my favorite one to play with my kids. We also play dominoes and things like that. Some card games. Uno is super. We stuff that's easy to take with you to restaurants. So I travel a lot. For my two daughters both play volleyball and basketball. So this weekend we'll be going to Houston for a club volleyball tournament. And it's a blast, but we often will bring, a stack of Uno cards or something like that to play, at the dinner. So hopefully everybody's not on their smartphones, the whole time. But try to do some phone free time as we all try to be somewhat responsible parents when it comes to technology. So it's a challenge.
Yes, I agree. Well, of I think 20 episodes, there are only 3 people have said Monopoly, and of those 3, only 1 has said Monopoly Junior. So you're in those.
Cool.
But I agree. I love it to use it as a tool to spend quality time with my family without smartphones in the mix. Okay, and then probably another question I didn't prep you for, but is what do you consider your superpower and why?
Oh, that is a loaded question, right? What do I consider my superpower and why? I think if that question is more focused on kind of the business aspect of what we've talked about today, my superpower would probably be having a pretty firm grasp on building a business, building a client base, building out a team, building out the processes around all of it. Now, having done it twice, I can tell you it's not simple, and it's not something that necessarily people, they don't teach you that in law school. You're going to, learn from mistakes along the way. And I think we have built both at Skribe and the law firm a very strong foundations with both companies to set them up for growth. Just last week, I was rolling out accountability charts, which are based on the Gino Wickman book, Traction, which is a great business book, a great read if your listeners are interested. Another book that has inspired some of my, again, what do you call it, superpowers or just lessons learned and things that I try to leverage to do a better job is the book Unreasonable Hospitality. Let's see who the author is. It's Will Guidara. He's the former either general manager or executive chef at Madison Park in New York. And it's a great book. It's about a restaurant, but it teaches you about the concept of how to really provide customer service in a way that puts a smile on your customer or your client's face and gives them something that maybe they don't expect. And so we're always looking at ways at my law firm to go that extra step. And it doesn't even have to be something big. Like, we learned one of our clients, this person was just a prospect, actually, someone who I've stayed in regular touch with over the years. We learned that she was on leave and battling cancer. And so she had just come back to work. And so we just sent her a small little care package that said something like beat cancer, with some candies, a coffee cup, just something little like that, completely unexpected. And she was just over the moon that someone had thought, to send her something like that. So we always look for opportunities and ways to go that extra step, kind of a nice surprise to our clients. And usually the gifts or the ideas are things that cost anywhere from $5 to $25. But the impact is just, it's so much greater.
That's awesome. I completely agree. I think when you explore companies that you consider having best customer service, it's the ones that do something you didn't expect. And I was actually working on that chapter recently and was looking to see what books are on that, because that's another area besides management that I think they don't teach much in law school about is customer service, even though we are in the professional service industry. But love that. Great reminder. And thanks for the book shout out. And I'll take a look at the unreasonable hospitality. Right. And definitely recommend Gino Wickman, Traction. He came out with a new book called Shine.
Yeah.
Co-wrote recently. All good stuff. Okay. So we caught you off guard. You shared a lot of good stories and about how you run two businesses at the same time and play Uno and Monopoly Junior for fun. So how do people stay in touch with you if they want to reach out, find out more about what you're up to?
I'll give you the shortest email because it'd probably be the easiest to remember. So it's Karl@Skribe.ai. That's Karl with a K and Skribe with a K.ai. And so if any of your listeners shoot me an email and mention this podcast, we'd be happy to provide 25% off their first deposition with Skribe. Or if you're interested in, either having me join a webinar on the use of legal technology in litigation or anything else, I'm certainly happy to collaborate. Like you, Ruby, it's a passion of mine. I enjoy being a business owner and entrepreneur, and I'm always looking for ways to use software to better leverage, what we do and provide a better service for our clients.
Well, thank you, Karl. That was great. And that's exciting. And you're offering a discount for our listeners. Appreciate that. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on this insightful journey with Karl today. Your time and engagement means the world to us. And if you've enjoyed this episode, want to continue the conversation, please connect with us at Power Up Your Practice on the Facebook group. And definitely listen to our other episodes, follow. And we have my upcoming book, Power Up Your Practice, will be coming out really soon, just putting some finishing touches on it. But otherwise, stay in touch and we'll see you next time. Feeling overwhelmed by admin tasks? You're not alone. Many immigration lawyers are in the same boat. That's where Staffy comes in. Over 90 law firm owners just like you have turned to Staffy for help with legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work. Now, Staffy's mission: to help lawyers find balance while growing their firm. With bilingual virtual staff and full HR support, they take the hassle out of a team management and focus on what matters most, your clients and your practice. I've personally benefited from Staffy's support with 7 virtual assistants of my own across various areas of 2 of my businesses, including my law firm. Now, schedule a free initial consultation with Staffy. That's stafi.cc and use the code RUBY. That's RUBY for $500 off. Thank you for tuning in to the Power Up Your Practice Law Practice Management Podcast. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. Join us next week for another episode where we'll continue to explore insightful strategies for success. Power Up Your Practice with us. See you next time.